Alright, here's the video review of one I've been waiting for a while. I've been super anxious to get this one in. Combiner Wars Leader Class Ultra Magnus with Minimus Ambus. Which is, a reference to the comics. If you've been reading those, I really enjoy it more than meets the eye, and the Minimus Ambus character, and it's nice that we're seeing him more these days. So yeah, here's the Ultra Magnus based on the IDW comic version of him. And his alt mode is a little off. It's not exactly like it is in the comics, but it's reminiscent of his old G1 cab and trailer thing. Alt mode. He does come with a little Minimus Ambus who doesn't fit in the cab in vehicle mode because the head goes in there. And you notice that I was not prepared for how tiny Minimus was. I knew he was going to be small, but there's my thumb, just to give you an idea. I thought he was going to be maybe a little closer to the Legends class figures, but here he is with Blackjack. He's very wee. Here he is next to a Lego figure, just to give you an idea of about how big he is. So yeah, but despite all that, he's actually a pretty cool little figure because he, aside from being a little space Dotson or something, in the comics he's a minesweeper, but oh well. So you bring his legs down, and then you pop his arms out, and then you actually lower his backpack. You kind of lift it up, down, and around to lower that backpack down onto his back. And there's Minimus Ambus in robot mode. He's got ball joint shoulders, ball joint hips, and hinged knees. So he's got a pretty decent amount of posability for a figure that, again, compared to a Lego figure, is not... It was about the same size in vehicle mode and not much bigger in bot mode. Here he is with the load bearer little mini bot I got from Wulong Toys Shapeways store. I've showed him off before, but just to give you an idea of about how big he is compared to that. So he's not a very large figure by any means. So there's Minimus. The Japanese version comes with this little figure, but he's painted like Alpha Trion. I don't know why that's the case, but that's just how they're doing it over there. So there you go. Now, size comparison. Here he is with Combiner Wars Voyager Optimus. And you can see in vehicle mode, Optimus is a much larger cab. Magnus ends up being a bigger robot, but in vehicle mode, Prime's cab is much larger than Magnus's, and a lot of empty space here. But just to give you a size comparison there, here he is with Combiner Wars Leader Megatron. And you can see comparable size, maybe not in proportion to each other vehicle-wise, but about the same size and mass to each other. Here he is, since I have these with me, with Sideswipe and Jazz from Robots in Disguise. Here he is with Blackjack. And like I said, you can fit, here's Deluxe Sideswipe, and you can kind of fit him in here. And you can fit him on the trailer, but he's a little large. Same, you set Jazz on top. And they fit, but a little bigger in proportion to the trailer than expected. Or than you would expect from something like this. But he mostly works really well with the Legends class figures like Blackjack or Windcharger or some of the other smaller cars, Swerve, Tailgate, Tailpipe, all of them, Tailgate. Will all fit on them fairly decently. You can get 4 of those roughly on him in vehicle mode. So he's kind of designed to work with them really more than deluxe class cars. You can, of course, open up the back to form a ramp if you want. There's a little bit of a gap here just because of the way it's designed, but you can roll cars up there. You can unpeg these and lower these down if you want to form the ramp again. Again, the way it fits, there's a gap, but if you want to do it, it's possible. Back in. One of the vehicle mode comparison before we get into it, and that is with the Leader Class Ultra Magnus from Animated. And you can see a little bit bigger overall in dimensions he takes up on the shelf. But granted, obviously being a hollow trailer and all this stuff, Animated Magnus is much heftier, has a lot more mass to him. Part of that's because of some of the cuts in the toy budgets. Like I said, Ultra Magnus does have some hollowness to him, and we'll discuss that as we transform him and get into robot mode. But you can see overall size-wise, he's not significantly smaller. He's hollower, but not significantly smaller than his animated counterpart. I thought about bringing in Masterpiece Magnus, but like this is Leader Class Magnus, Leader Class Magnus. You've got a size class in the general retail toy line versus, you know, the collector's line. And I feel like that's a more valid comparison for Ultra Magnus than comparing this with a Masterpiece toy. Also, I already carried so much stuff in, it was hard to fit the room. All right, and going on to transform him now. You can see his weapons store back here. You have to store this gun on this side if you want it facing upside or right side up, because otherwise it goes upside down. This one has a peg on top. It can store on either side again. They just peg in right back here on peg holes, but you take those off. Pop off his missile pods here. And transformation is very similar to the old school one for the armor, and then a little bit closer to the Masterpiece with this front cab here, but we'll show it all off. So basically come back here, unpeg the arm bits. You can lift them up out of the way. You want to unpeg these pieces. Actually, when you're going back, make sure they tab on here. There's a little tab that these pieces peg onto, so bring those down and rotate them up like that. Pop these apart, pop this chest plate out. Kind of split the legs. This piece should come up like this. Split the legs, and then again they peg in. You want to make sure you fold this all the way up till this peg right here on the leg pegs into the side armor. That's going to let the feet sit flat. Otherwise, the feet sit at a weird angle and won't let the wheels roll. So make sure that comes all the way down and pegs in to that when you're transforming back to vehicle mode. So basically, you unpeg it down here and rotate this up, and then this peg is going to peg in right here on the side armor. So just bring this all the way up and peg it right in there. That can tab in there, and then the foot folds down and forward like that. And then this piece right here that we folded up, then folds around to the inside of the leg. And again, tabs on right there. So everything folds up and tabs together down here. Now same on this leg. Unpeg it, rotate it down. There we go, peg this on up here. Tab this back in here. So you tab there, bring the foot down and around front, and then fold this around, peg it on like that, and the legs are done. Bring the legs down here at the waist. There is no waist swivel due to the transformation. It seems like they could have fit one in there, but they didn't. But whatever. So bring the legs down like that. Then coming up here to the upper body, let's bring this up a little bit. Bring this all the way up like this. These split around the way you'd expect. This cab. Oh, one of the things I forgot to mention, in vehicle mode, his cab has enough clearance to swing, even with the car kind of sticking out a little bit there. It can swing all the way around to the side. It doesn't get caught up on the thing. So the cab can actually swing a decent amount all the way around, which is cool. So anyway, so then we split these open, fold these around onto the side here. Stand them up all the way, bring this all the way forward, slide his shoulders up through the thing. Now he comes packaged like this. You want to push them all the way up until they click into place like that. This little ratchet right here should sit right under that blue piece. And again, so we'll slide this up here so it clicks into place. The forearms come up like this and reveal the hands and come up over here and lock into place like that. And the cab actually on this piece, now you can unscrew this piece and remove the cab if you wish. You just have to unscrew that piece right there. But it slides down this like this, so it sits like that. But then you unpeg the cab here, lift it up a little bit like this, and you rotate it around like that, and then fold it down into the body here like that, which is pretty cool. I like that's a neat transformation. And then you open up the front panels here, and you open up this and lift his head up. Pull that panel down flat. We'll keep lifting his head up. Now you can, at this point, if you want, you can close this back up, fold his head down, fold the chest panel up. Now you'll have a gap in here But you can have Ultra Magnus without Minimus Ambus inside of him. And here's a quick size comparison of him with Minimus. Just in robot mode. Also, here's a quick size comparison. We showed Minimus off with in vehicle mode. There's Minimus next to Blackjack in robot mode. So you can see he is quite a tiny little figure. Now here he is, again, with the Wulong T guy. And a Lego figure. I think I may have already showed these off, but whatever. in this configuration. So you can do it like this. You put the missile peaugh on his shoulders. I'll get to the weapons soon. But the way this is supposed to work is in the comics, Minimus Ambus is actually the robot that's inside Ultra Magnus. He's one in a long line of people who have worn the Magnus armor and carried on the tradition of Ultra Magnus. But he actually, you take him and he's small enough, he sits in, and the way he actually fits into this dock here is really nice. There's some neat, it's not brought out, it's all just molded in, it's not painted or anything. But a lot of neat sculpting in here. He's got like a little chair. And his feet, these little tabs on his legs actually go into those slots there. But you can put his legs in like this. And then you kind of set him down, lean him back a little bit. But his hands can actually, there's little joysticks in here that his hands can peg onto. Now, I'm pretty sure that when he wears this armor in the comics, like it's not him sitting inside with some joysticks controlling it like a mech. I'm pretty sure like he kind of interfaces with it as if he were, part of it, but not just sitting in it, controlling it. But he goes in there, and then you can see he fills in that gap up there on top. You can leave the head flipped up. You can see him in there piloting the Magnus armor. But yeah, there's Ultra Magnus all put together. Now his rifles, he's got hinged hands. And they even have, there's even like a place, it looks like you might have been able to slot this in, but like, it's just a flat handle. So you can get it, and you can wrap his hand around it, but he doesn't hold, you can see, he doesn't hold his weapons very well. Or he falls backwards if you don't have him properly set up to balance. But the fingers, it's not super loose, but there's a little bit of play in the joint here. So you can put the gun in his hand, and you can get him to grip it. And as long as you don't bump it, he'll hold it just fine. But it doesn't take a whole lot of effort, as you can see, to knock it out of his hand. The same with the other gun. It'll hold just fine for a display, but you really just have to just lightly tap it, and it'll fall out, which is kind of a shame. I don't like if these fingers were a little tighter, and you can tighten them up with some floor polish. You kind of squeeze it in the cracks here and move them around to work that. Polish or super glue or whatever joint tightener you want. You can thicken these up. There are ways to tighten these joints. This hand actually is a little thicker, or is a little tighter than this hand at the moment. But it's harder to do than with a ball joint. And again, because there's no way of pegging them in the hands in, it's hard to get him to hold these things with any degree of stability. Granted, I don't mind. I'm probably not going to have him hold his weapons a lot, but yeah, it is my one real issue with him. Some people have complained about his hollowness, and there are, there's the cutout bits here on these struts. And if you look at the back, there's the hollow thighs. Granted, it is on the back, and it's kind of hidden unless you're looking at them directly from the back. But they don't have solid plastic parts the way they used to do. Same up here. Which is a little disappointing, even the forearms. The forearms, I think, are what bug me the most, because most of it, the rest of it is not really visible, unless you're looking at it from a specific angle that you wouldn't normally look at a robot from, like from behind in robot mode. But yeah, so like it's a design choice, but it's not, unless you're really looking for it here on the forearms, it's not visually distracting too much. He still feels hefty. He's not as heavy as, say, animated Leader Magnus, of course, because he's not solid. He doesn't have a battery pack, all of that jazz. But it's not nearly as dire as I was being led to believe by some of the people I'd read online. I read online that people were disappointed in how he felt. And I was super hyped for him. Believe me, I've been waiting for this guy for a while. And he's pretty much exactly what I expected. I guess I just didn't overhype myself for this one. I had just the right amount of hype. But like I said, he does have the clip-on wheels. The Takara version that we've seen does have more paint on it. It's got the rims and some more detail work, and he's got the red thighs. which make him more accurate to the first season of the comic. This is technically what he looks like in the comic now, roughly. I mean, like, it's not exact, but he's got the white thighs now in the comic. But overall, I'm pretty happy with him. He doesn't have a ball joint head, but he does have a swivel on his Ultra Magnus head, so you've got that right there. His shoulders go up that way. The panels that these missiles pods plug into also lift up, so you can get some range of movement here on his arms. So he's got that inward out. He does have a bicep swivel, ratcheting hinged elbows. He doesn't have a wrist swivel, unfortunately. He does have the moving fingers. Again, no waist swivel because of the way the transformation works. But he does have universal ratcheting hips, thigh swivel, ratcheting knees. And the feet can move this way. It would have been nice if they could have engineered an ankle tilt into this, but they didn't. So he's just got a little bit of... He's got a pretty decent range of motion, actually, forward and back there on his foot to support a lot of poses. So he's got basic standard posability. He doesn't really go above and beyond in a way that would make me say, this is just amazing and look at the job they did on this. But it's not, again, it's not a letdown the way I was expecting from some of the reports I've heard online. He's exactly what I wanted. He's exactly what I expected, especially already having Jetfire and Megatron and Optimus and a lot of the other Combiner Wars figures. Nothing about him really surprised me. Aside from, like, again, how tiny Minimus was. I was not expecting him to be quite that tiny. So he's a pretty good, solid figure. Now, you can also take the missile pods and his guns, and you can combine them like this to form his Magnus Hammer. A neat feature. Unfortunately, again, because of the way this is molded, there's no real way for him to hold it by the end. He suffers from the same problem that animated Magnus did, and that the only way for him to really hold this is to slide this in this little gap right here and close his hand around it, so you can really kind of hold it choked up near the head of the hammer, versus in any kind of appreciable, I'm going to swing this and really do some damage to somebody type of way. And because there's no wrist swivel, you can't really get him in any decent two-handed poses. You can't swivel this, and the way his arms move, you can't really get... You can kind of lift it up and get his... use his bicep swivel. You really got to kind of work at it. You can get him to hold it like this, which doesn't really look natural. He can hold it two-handed, but like this elbow is now turned out to the side, so you can't even bend this arm this way a little bit to make it look maybe a little bit more natural and relaxed holding this hammer. He's just got his arm straight out like this with his elbow bent to the outside. So it is possible. It's not easy. Somebody else mentioned one of the things you could do is have him hold just the short handle of the hammer. And that, honestly, I feel that works a little better. It makes him look more like a paladin with like a, not a mace. Is it a mace? Is a mace what I'm thinking of? There's a specific term I'm looking for, the Holy Hammer. And for the life of me, I can't remember what it was. But you can have it as a small hammer. Still easy to, like, it seems like you could wield that and do more damage than trying to hold it with the extra post down here. But it's entirely up to you, and you can have, of course, have him kind of, as I mentioned earlier, hold his weapon in his other hand. Up to you. Personally, I'd probably just leave the missile pods on his shoulders and maybe give him this rifle. I don't know how often, how much use I'll get out of the hammer mode, but it does exist if you're interested. And real quick, we'll do a size comparison. Let me get the other guys out here. Let me get this back on. So here he is, Magnus by himself. Here he is with the Voyager Prime. And again, while you saw that Prime's vehicle mode, his cab was much larger than Magnus. Once you get him into robot mode, he's actually quite larger, significantly larger than Optimus. Here he is with the leader Megatron, and he's a little shorter than Megatron. Taller again because of the shoulder pylons that go pretty high, but just the top of his head comes to about Megatron's eyes. There, here he is with Robots in Disguise, Jazz, and Sideswipe, which I'm only throwing in because I showed them off earlier. Here he is with Blackjack. A Legends class figure. Here he is with the Wulong T Minimus Ambus, who looks good next to him. Doesn't quite fit in the armor. I was thinking maybe it would be possible to stuff him in there, but it just doesn't work. unfortunately. And here he is with another leader class Magnus, and you can see he's not as bulky. He doesn't have the broad shoulders, and certainly because of the battery pack and everything, he doesn't have as much mass as animated Magnus, but he's about the same height overall at the head. So there's two leader Magnuses from two different lines, from animated 8 years ago, I guess, and Magnus here in 2015. So yeah, two similarly priced retail, at the same retail slot as the leader class price point. Magnus with a G1 comic flavor, Magnus from animated, just to show those two off. Is he worth picking up? I think so. If you like Ultra Magnus, he's definitely worth picking up. If you like reading more than meets the eye, absolutely pick him up. He's not perfect, but he's not any worse worse than anything else that has come out in this line. He's better than a lot of stuff that has come out in the Combiner Wars line so far. I like him better than Prime, I think. Is he as good? I don't know if he's quite as good as Megatron. Personally, I like him more than Megatron, just from the character. But I think Megatron may be a slightly overall better figure. But he's better than Jetfire. Like I said, personally, I recommend him. I like him. I think he's good. I did not run into any flaws on mine that I've noticed so far, and none of the things that people have been listing as huge disappointments really struck me as disappointments when I had him in hand, and I was all ready to accept those disappointments, knowing about them ahead of time, and they just didn't seem to come to fruition for me. Maybe it's because I knew ahead of time and I knew what to expect, but that's the case. He also came with his little art card, like they want to do with the Legends style art, with Magnus and Minimus, and his instruction sheet. I forgot to show those off earlier. But yeah. There's Ultra Magnus from the Combiner Wars line, the leader class. Definitely gets a thumbs up from me. Not perfect, but definitely worth picking up in some way, shape, or form, whether you get him or the Takara version.